Welcome to Facebook Live, our first live showing, kicking off the third season. Hey, it's my Aunt Sherry.
Oh, nice.
Very nice. Hello, Aunt Sherry. How you doing? Glad you could see us live. What else have we got going on? How was your day?
It was good. I had off work today. We're off Mondays, so
Nice.
Yeah, had off today. Had an eye appointment. As you can see, I'm wearing my glasses still. I have an issue with I have my contacts. My contacts are giving me trouble, so I may have to switch to glasses permanently. We'll see. Or at least try a different kind of contacts. Still working on that, so we'll see. But
yeah, I just got my contacts. I literally wore glasses all day today and then put them on for this.
Yeah.
I wanted to be pretty for the camera.
Nice.
Hey, my sister-in-law Grace is on. Woohoo!
Oh, cool.
We have viewers.
We do. Nice.
Yeah. Let's see what's going on. Oh, my dad. My dad is here. Sweet.
Nice.
So we got a little bit of a thing going on.
Yeah.
So
you were talking about the Marvel trailer that came out today.
Oh my gosh, the Marvel trailer. That got me so hyped. Like, I think COVID-19 was really good for Marvel because it gave us a break, like that final thing ended, Marvel shut down. They ended with Spider-Man, they ended with Endgame, and then we had a year off from everything Marvel. And I wasn't really interested in anything more Marvel. So I decided to just basically swear it off. And now that we've had this year break and they've come out with 2 great TV shows, the movies are starting to come back. It's like, okay, now I'm getting a little hyped up. And then they released that trailer today. And that trailer was fantastic because they announced the next 10 movies, the dates for the next 10 movies, the titles for the next 10 movies.
Logos,
everything. And I'm just like, oh, this is going to be so perfect. I'm going to love it. So, yeah, I'm a little more excited for Marvel now.
Yeah. Have you been keeping up with the Disney Plus shows?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Have you? I just finished Falcon and Winter Soldier last night, so I was a little behind.
Captain America and White Wolf.
Yeah. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I really liked it. So I finished last night, and then I saw that Marvel trailer this morning, and I was like, yes. I was also one of those people who was like, after Endgame, I think I'm pretty much done. I've followed it for 10 straight years, 10 plus, and I felt very much done with it. But now, I don't know, I'm still, they've bought me into it. I'm still excited. Nice. I was trying not to be, but yeah.
I'm excited for the Loki show, and they got a lot going on, and I'm excited for it.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so anything else going on?
Not really at this point. No, it's life's going pretty as normal as it can be, in this world. But yeah.
Hey, people who are watching us, can you see both of us on the screen at the same time?
I think they can, because I was on my iPad here and I could see you. Yeah, they can see both of us at the same time.
Okay, cool.
Yep. Yeah, they can see us. So yeah.
I'm ready for the 6-hour movie.
The 6-hour movie? Oh, I see what you mean.
Anything by... Oh, maybe we're supposed to do 6 hours of entertainment, or maybe...
It shouldn't be that. It should not be that long.
It should not be that long. I'm hoping to end by 10. Yeah, my house got quiet. That's great, because the kids were up until literally probably 10 minutes ago.
Yeah.
My wife had to go in and give them stern words to go to bed. Actually, earlier this week, because I'm stay-at-home dad now. My wife is out working. So my kids woke up the one morning and it was still early, and I'm in bed half asleep, but I can hear them kind of making noise, and suddenly I hear thud, and I'm like, oh no, what happened? So I started climbing out of bed and going and everything, and my daughter had put all of her stuffed animals in the one corner of her crib, and then climbed up on top of them, and then climbed over, got her one leg over the rail, got her arm over the rail, and then just tipped her body enough so that poof, her body just fell over and bam, she landed hard on the floor.
Oh.
Yeah, so she stands up. She had like a fat lip, and like blood was coming out of her mouth. It was not good. 2 years old, screaming, crying, terrifying situation. I'm still half asleep. I get hit there. I just grab her and I hold her. I'm like, Ezra, go get napkins. Go get napkins. He comes back with a bunch of tissues and stuff, and I clean her up. And so it was at that point that we decided it's time for her to be to change the crib into a bed, because it's one of those types of cribs that you can turn into a bed. So we changed it into a bed, and then it's like, okay, it's a bed now, but now she can get out whenever she wants, So we've been having to kind of sit in there and make sure she goes to sleep, but she's kind of adapted to it pretty quick. Nap time, she just lays down and goes. But oh my gosh, that was scary to have her climbing over the edge and falling out.
I'm sure. Oof. Man.
So should we get into the movie?
Let's get into it. I also want to show I went all out here. You can't hardly see it, but I am wearing my
you got your Jurassic Park shirt.
Nice. I went all out for it. So yeah, Jurassic Park. This is one of my top 5 favorite movies. I'm not sure where this ranks, if you have like an official top 10 movie list or whatever. I
have an official movie list, but it's definitely
up there for you.
High. It's definitely good. High.
Yeah, this is also one that came out the year I was born, so I consider this kind of the year of my movie type of thing. This was released June 11, 1993. So the year I was born, a couple of months before I was born in September. This is one of those movies I wish I could have experienced in the theater for the first time, because I occasionally see the reactions, like people in the YouTube comments will say, "Oh, I saw this in the theater," and they give what their experience was like, and it just sounds, amazing, because no one, we'll get into it here, but no one had ever seen this kind of CGI referring, to dinosaurs. Yeah. No one had ever seen this level before, ever in a movie, and so it had to have been a breathtaking experience. And
I did not see this one in the theater because I was too young.
Yeah, you would have been about 10.
It would have been about 10. I think I saw it when I was like 11 or 12. Hey, Jacob. Thanks for joining us. It's my cousin Jacob there.
Oh, nice.
Says he likes Jurassic World better.
Oof.
We're old.
We are.
My son the other day, I told him I was something about, that's just something us old people say or us old people do. And he's like, you're not old. Grandma's old. Papu's old. Grandpa's old. Uncle Michael's old, Aunt Sharon's old, and Nana's old, but you're not old. And I just thought it was funny that he threw my brother-in-law and sister-in-law in there, who were, they're like 6 years older than me, 7 years older than me. So it's just kind of funny. They're included in the old group with my parents, who are in their 60s. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
Well,
not old.
Yeah.
So anyways, back to Jurassic Park, sorry.
Yeah, released June 11, 1993. This is already almost 28 years old at this point, which is hard to believe. It's coming up on its 30th anniversary, which is, I saw this in theaters for the 3D re-release for the 20th anniversary that happened in 2013. So I did see it in theaters for its 20th anniversary. So at least I got to see that. But it grossed $1.03 billion on a $63 million budget when it first came out. This was the highest grossing movie of all time up until it got passed by Titanic 4 years later in 1997. So up until that point,
it made $1 billion back then. That's not based on like re-releases and stuff.
It's so hard to tell these days. I'm kind of going by what IMDb said. Okay. So it may be including the re-release. It probably is including the re-release that happened in 2013. Mm-hmm. But still the highest grossing movie of all time. Right. At least in the 800-900 million, I think, is what it made in its original run.
Crazy.
It was written by Michael Crichton and David Cope, and it's based on a novel by Michael Crichton, which I haven't read, but I kind of went to at some point.
Sorry, my mom joined us.
Oh, nice. And it was directed by Steven Spielberg. It was nominated for and won 3 Oscars for Best Sound Effects Editing, and Best Visual Effects.
Okay.
So synopsis, in case anyone is unfamiliar with the plot of the movie, it is about a paleontologist, botanist, and a mathematician visiting a soon-to-be open theme park, containing cloned dinosaurs who must fight for their lives after the park's power goes out during a thunderstorm. So
thunderstorm? It's like a freaking hurricane.
Well,
man.
hurricane more like, yes. Sorry, my bad. It's a hurricane. So yeah. So I kind of wanted to dive in. I'll get your thoughts on this. I know we've just kind of discussed this before, but why does this movie hold up so well? This is a movie that's, like we said, almost 30 years old at this point.
Yeah.
And it looks still so good from a visual perspective. It looks so good almost 3 decades later compared to movies that are coming out nowadays, even the Jurassic World sequels.
Yeah, I was watching it yesterday and I was like trying to see it as like I was trying to see like the bad stuff in it, and where is the line blurring between the CGI and the real world stuff? And they just like they were just on point. They knew it had to be believable. They knew it had to be really good. It's kind of similar to like Lord of the Rings, where they just stepped up their game because they had to. You know, how can you make a movie a classic that's going to last forever if you're not doing the best possible work out there? So between the practical effects that they had, because they had all the animatronics and stuff, and the CGI, it's like, no, this just works. It just it holds up. And the other thing is they're very subtle with it. It's not like they're trying to just like put it in your face. They're just being like, okay, hey, dinosaurs, you know, like they build up. You know, when you see it, Alan Grant sees the Brontosaurus for the first time. You don't see the Brontosaurus for a couple minutes after he sees it. They wait, you know, they show his reaction, they show Malcolm's reaction, they show them grabbing Ellie and being like, yo, look at this. And then it's her reaction, and then it finally shows you what they're looking at, and it's just incredible.
Spielberg has proven through his previous movies how well he makes you want to see stuff that's off screen. He shows you character reactions and forces you to think what is just outside the frame, and he does that so well in Jurassic Park. It's fantastic. This was the first film to feature This was the first film to feature a living creature that was created digitally, and the first film to really feature digital dinosaurs. That had never been done before at this point. You had movies like King Kong, several King Kong movies that came out before this that were created through practical means and using stop motion stuff. But this was the first movie to really use CGI to kind of bring that all in and use CGI to create that motion and not use stop motion. Yeah, because originally, this movie was supposed to use a combination of miniatures and this new technique called go motion, which is basically a newer version of stop motion. It was basically stop motion, but it was a more fluid form of stop motion. Yeah. So they were originally going to use that for this movie, but then Steven Spielberg got a call from Dennis Muren, who was an animator at ILM, and Dennis Muren showed him this animation of a T-Rex that was chasing some Gallimimus in this field.
Yes, I saw you mention that. Okay.
Yeah, you can still find this. Yeah, you can find the clip on YouTube. You can find this test footage they showed Steven Spielberg, and they showed him this footage, and he was convinced from that moment on, he was convinced that he could actually create this movie using those, for the full body shots at least, because he wanted to use practicals for the close-ups and stuff, but for the full-length shots, he could create the dinosaurs using digital means, and that was just a revolutionary thing at the time, because at the time, you know, they were planning to use this go motion technique, but the ILM's animation was able to provide much smoother movements. They were able to see muscles moving, skin moving. They were able to see the dinosaurs breathing, and it just looked so much more lifelike and more realistic.
Sorry.
Got the Rona again. And that's what they were going for in this movie. They were going for realism. They wanted to create the most realistic looking dinosaurs that have ever been created, and they went all out for it. They used Stan Winston's animatronics for all the close-up shots. So basically, the rule of thumb for this movie is anytime there's a close-up shot, it's an animatronic, and anytime it's like a full body shot, it's most likely a digital creation using CGI.
I mean, this is 1993. This is This is before Toy Story came out. This is before so many other innovations in it. It almost makes me wonder which one they did first. Did they create the animatronic and then base what the animatronic was? Did they base the animatronic off the CGI, or did they make the CGI based off of what the animatronic was like.
Right.
It's like which came for chicken or the egg? Which one did they make first? Which one did they decide to base the whole thing off of?
Well, like I have the trilogy on DVD, and in special features, I actually was looking at the documentary here the last couple of days, and they said that they actually based the movements off of. So they did like some puppetry and stuff, and they actually implemented those movements into the CGI. So they were actually able to kind of program the computer to input those movements they had tracked using just regular movements, using puppetry and stuff like that. And that's kind of how they were able to get such really fluid motion, realistic looking movements. They just really hadn't been able to get before. And Dennis Muren, actually, I forgot to mention, he was actually working on Terminator 2 at this time, because Terminator 2 came out 2 years prior, and he was actually working on the T-1000 in Terminator 2, and Spielberg was impressed by James Cameron's The Abyss, which came out in '89, I think. The water effect that they had done in The Abyss, and then also he was impressed with the T-1000 in the Terminator 2, because Terminator 2 also broke some new bounds in CGI, and since Dennis Muren was already involved with that, he was able to provide insight into bringing dinosaurs to life digitally using those same kinds of methods. So that was a huge deal.
Sorry, I was just looking up The Abyss. Yeah, it was '89.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So. It's crazy.
Yeah, and like the
think about 28 years ago.
Yeah, it really is. I will say, like the Raptors in the kitchen, the Raptors in the kitchen scene, it's kind of become
those were one of the puppets, weren't they?
Those were actually humans in actual Raptor suits. I will say they used a combination. They used some of the shots were actually humans in Raptor suits. Some of the shots were augmented with some CGI, and some they used animatronics. So they kind of used a combination of those three for the Raptors in the kitchen scene. Basically, whatever suited the shot is what they did, and that's kind of how this was. They didn't rely entirely on CGI. They didn't rely entirely on animatronic. They used practical effects as the foundation, which I think is so important. They used practical effects as a foundation, and wherever they could not feasibly use animatronics, that's where they went into CGI. I think you kind of get into problems whenever you reverse that and do it the opposite, where you rely pretty much entirely on CGI. You don't want to use animatronics, maybe here, maybe there.
You can tell when a movie is almost purely CGI, and it just doesn't look natural. Even with Avatar, as good as Avatar is, like there's something just wholly unnatural about that film. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't mesh as well as seeing the dinosaurs. Dinosaurs were much more believable than the blue cat people.
Yeah.
So and that's only 10 years old.
Right. Yeah, 2009.
12 years. Wow.
Yeah. But yeah, and I will say this movie kind of looks dated in certain spots where you see like the dinosaurs, the CGI dinosaurs, and the broad daylight, like the scene where the T-Rex is chasing the Gallimimus in the film. You can kind of tell, especially when it gets a little close up there. But I think what he did so well was we'll get into the T-Rex breakout. I kind of want to break down that scene. But they were able to kind of hide the CGI when they used dark lighting, like low key lighting. And that was such a crucial thing because they knew the limits of CGI even at the time, even though they were making all these breakthroughs, like they knew what the limits were. They knew you couldn't get too close to the camera with CGI because it would start looking very artificial. But they were able to use low key lighting for that scene to make it look kind of really blend it in so well with the background so that you really could not tell.
I noticed that even with the Brachiosaurus that they show, it's broad daylight when they first show it,
right?
Which I think up the like awe of that moment,
right?
But they also had like a cloudy background. It wasn't like pure bright sunlight, blue sky. It was like kind of overcast. So I think that helped because it kind of they didn't have to have like this big blue sky against like the purplish blue-green skin of the dinosaur,
Yeah.
So,
One thing I also noticed that kind of helps this movie, which I actually saw in a YouTube video essay, was the aspect ratio for this movie. I'm not sure if you kind of noticed, but like, back in the day, they used smaller aspect ratios and more kind of box shape. They didn't use widescreen because HD really wasn't a thing back then. So they used a 1.37 to 1 aspect ratio for this movie and for the first 3 movies in the Jurassic Park series. And when you use a taller aspect ratio, you're able to put taller things inside the frame, and so that really helped this movie. When you see the Brachiosaurus for the first time, Brachiosaurus for the first time, you're seeing pretty much the whole dinosaur in that frame. Whereas in later movies, like in Jurassic World, they use a 2-to-1 aspect ratio for the first Jurassic World and a 2.39 for the second Jurassic World. And there's a scene in Fallen Kingdom, which is the second Jurassic World, where they show a Brachiosaurus and they can't even get the whole thing in the frame because they're using such a wide, such a widescreen aspect ratio. And it really is to the detriment of what they're trying to do. They're trying to showcase the scale of these dinosaurs, but they can't do it because they're using such a small.
Well, that's why they did Justice League. The
Zack Snyder's
version was shot in the 1.37 or 1:4, whatever. Aspect ratio, because he was showing more of a he wanted to emphasize like the height a lot more than the width, the looking up to these godlike characters, basically, the strength and all that. So that makes sense.
So I kind of want to get into the T-Rex breakout scene. This is
all right. The T-Rex breakout.
This is one of my
10 minutes ago.
One of my favorite scenes. Really one of my favorite scenes in cinema that I've seen, honestly. Like, I love this scene that much. I just think it's a masterclass in suspense. So first, it starts off by you hearing and feeling the approach of the T-Rex. Like you don't, it kind of goes, it tracks along with what Spielberg did in the film leading up to this point. You don't see the animals at first. You either see people's reactions or it builds up, and you see the concentric circles in the water cup as it's approaching. You hear its footsteps, which, by the way, this whole gag. Are you familiar with how this gag was done? Getting those circles in the water cup, how that was accomplished?
I read your notes. So
okay,
yes,
yeah. Of course you did. Thanks. This was actually a very tough gag to do. Spielberg wanted these. Basically, Spielberg got the idea from, he was in his car. And he had the bass turned up. He was listening to a song. He had the bass turned up, and he noticed that his rear view mirror was vibrating. And he was like, "Well, wouldn't it be a cool idea? Wouldn't it be a cool idea if instead of just seeing the T-Rex right away, if we could actually hear and feel his footsteps as he's approaching you to kind of build up the suspense before actually revealing him?" And so that's where he got the idea. And so they implemented these like water cups, but he wanted these very specific concentric circles to ripple, as he was approaching, which turned out to be a very difficult thing to do. They hired physicists, they hired wave tank engineers, they hired let me look at my notes here. They hired a bunch of different people to try to figure out, even sound engineers. They tried everything to try to figure out how this could be done, and no one was able to figure it out. And finally, the night before the shot, Michael Lantieri, who was one of the effects guys for the film, he set a water cup on top of his guitar, and he strung one of the strings of the guitar, and he's able to get the effect that way. And this is one of the simplest things. It's just one of those things.
Why would it be so hard to do this? And yet, I mean, it is.
That's right. Amazing. It's one of those things you don't think it's going to be very hard, but it took everyone that long to kind of figure out this is how it needs to be done. If you want to get those very specific circles, that's how it needs to be done. And so what they did for the movie was they had this, they set the water cup on the hood of the car, inside the car, and they fed a guitar string through the water cup, through the hood of the car, down underneath, and they had a guy laying underneath the car plucking a guitar string, and that's how that shot was done. It's just amazing.
It's just so crazy the way they get these things done. And having been part of the filmmaking process a couple of times now, I always kind of laugh at certain scenes where I'm like, I wonder what that person's actually looking at, because they're not looking at what it's juxtaposing against, you know.
Yeah.
I always, yeah, it's great. Okay, so the suspense builds.
The suspense build. You already have the atmosphere set with the hurricane, the thunderstorm. It's at night. You already have that atmosphere already all set up. This would have been a much less scary scene if it happened in broad daylight, obviously.
I love seeing you start seeing like the little claws against the fence just a little bit.
Yes. Yeah.
Where's the goat? That type of thing. Where's the goat? Where's the goat?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Oh my gosh.
And then the camera kind of it tilts up and you see Lex against the glass, and then you have that kind of that shock, that jump scare, it's just so. Then you got the thunder crack right as it hits the glass. Yeah. It's just perfect. It's absolutely
takes off running.
Yeah, he abandoned ship right away. Goes to the toilet, and that doesn't end so well for him.
It's the fact that he abandoned the kids is why I think you don't feel bad when he's the first one to die. It's just
it's like
because the fact that you mentioned something later with the Raptors.
Yes.
Like about like putting kids in danger. No one wants to see kids hurt.
Right.
And that's what they do in this scene too. And I was thinking that while I'm watching, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's kids. And I remember watching that movie as a kid because I was like 11, 12 years old when I first saw it. And those kids didn't seem that young to me. But watching it this time, I was like, oh my gosh, those are little kids. Those are little kids, and they're like, you got this giant dinosaur coming down on them. I'm actually looking at it I was kind of screaming at the screen being like, what is taking Grant and Malcolm so long to do anything?
Right.
Because it seems like they react so quickly, but they don't. They kind of stand there and just stare.
They're just kind of in shock
around, and the dinosaur coming through the roof after the kids, and I'm just like, what are you doing? Go get those kids, do something. Of course it is like, a giant, it's a dinosaur, it's a T-Rex.
It's like, so there's only so much you can do. Grant eventually does come to their aid with the flare and everything. I think that's honestly when he comes outside of the car and he waves the flare, that's when the T-Rex honestly looks the best in my opinion, because that was the full size. They used a 40-foot animatronic, 12,000-pound animatronic T-Rex for that shot. And that's when it looks so good because it's there. And
dude, I noticed the eyes dilate on a thing.
Oh yeah.
But it happens as it comes in and out of the light. So when the kids are screaming and the flashlight's going all over the place, and they put the light, like when it hits the eye dilates. Mm-hmm. When the light goes away, the eye gets big again. I'm just the
amount of detail.
That is so much detail. So much detail. This movie holds up so well.
Yeah. Because we know that's literally how eyes work. It's just, it's so awesome. They went into so much detail, painstaking detail to make even that little, you would think it's such a small thing, but it makes such a big difference. It makes them so much more lifelike.
Sorry, you just skipped for a minute there. I thought I lost you.
Oh, okay. Am I so good?
Yeah, you're smooth now.
Okay. Yeah, I just think even the smallest details make such the biggest, differences. And I love that they didn't go cheap on the details in this movie. They wanted everything to look as real as possible. I just really appreciate that. They actually used a second animatronic T-Rex also for like the close-up shots of the head. The head when the head was there next to the car. So they used technically two animatronic T-Rexes for the shoot.
Excuse me.
But it's just, and I just love even like how quickly. If you ever look at YouTube, also has some clips of test footage. Rehearsals they were doing with this T-Rex, this 40-foot T-Rex. Just how quickly they were able to move its head. It's just insane. Like this thing had a ton of power, and they wouldn't actually let people go near it whenever, they're operating it, because it would knock you out because of how fast they were able to turn its head. I think this comes to light whenever Tim shuts the door, and you see how quickly it turns its head. It's so alarming. It's just
crazy that that's an animatronic,
right? Because usually animatronics they're they look good because they're practical, but they kind of move slow. But they were able to move this thing very, very fast. Its head is just amazing. I don't know what else to say. It's just amazing. And also just how Spielberg is able to, like you were saying earlier, how he's able to seamlessly shift between animatronic and CGI.
Mm-hmm.
There's one shot in here where it's set, the camera's inside the car of Grant and Malcolm, and the T-Rex head is kind of on the right-hand side of the frame. He's kind of looking around, and that's when Lex turns the flashlight on. And so at that point, the T-Rex head, that's animatronic, obviously. But then whenever the T-Rex goes out of frame for like a split second, and then that's when they switch to CGI whenever he's walking towards the vehicle. And it's like just little things like that. They're able to switch seamlessly between CGI, between animatronic and CGI.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if you even knew this, but the car itself, whenever the T-Rex is trying to eat at the car, you know, the underside of the car, that the car itself is CGI there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. They even had the computer animate the car. The car itself was entirely CGI. Like, it's just amazing. Another way that Spielberg really immerses you in the scene is like I was saying earlier, he makes this subjective, not objective. He puts you inside the vehicle. He has shots inside the car with Tim and Lex and inside the car with Malcolm and Grant. You are literally part of the action. You're inside the car looking outside of this T-Rex. It's not just outside the car looking down on him, because that wouldn't be as scary. He literally puts you in with the characters.
Yeah, you're there.
Right. And that just makes it all the more immersive. And something that I really didn't pick up on for a long time was that there is no music in this scene. There is no music whatsoever in the T-Rex breakout scene. And
really?
No. There is no music whatsoever. The entire scene.
Even when they're knocking the thing off when it's knocking the thing over the edge?
Yeah. There's no music.
The car? Wow.
And I was thinking about this. This is something that's so really out of the norm, because normally, like in a suspenseful scene, you're using all the music you have, and he has John Williams at his disposal right here.
Yeah, right.
He chooses not to use any score whatsoever, and that actually adds to the realism of the scene. By not using any music, it just feels so much more raw and visceral. In that, it's just
more terrifying. Jeez.
Right. Because there's just no, it's all diegetic sounds. There's all sounds of the T-Rex, the growling, the footsteps, the screams. It's all, there's no background music to it, so it just feels all the more real. And that's something that I just didn't pick up on for the longest time. Like, there's actually no music to this entire scene.
I never picked up on that, so I'm gonna have to go back and watch that scene again now.
That's part of the reason why it's kind of a very subtle thing, but it's something that's so subtle but so powerful. That's why it makes, and just another reason why the scene is so effective is that there's actually no music. It just makes it all realistic.
There's a reason why Steven Spielberg is in a list all his own.
He's in a league of his own.
The only people who can be named kind of with him are people who are young now and have done really good works. And it's like, okay, these people may be in Spielberg's league 20 years from now, like Christopher Nolan and people like that, where it's like, wow, Christopher Nolan may be in Steven Spielberg's league if he keeps up the good work for another 20 years.
Right.
Yeah.
And, I guess ultimately what I love about this scene is it really serves as a metaphor for like the breakthrough CGI technology. This is literally the seed that when he breaks through that fence, that's a CGI T-Rex. It kind of breaks through that fence. You have that iconic shot of him roaring with the two cars in the foreground there, and the broken fence in the background. It was the breakthrough of this new computer generated imagery technology that would influence films decades later. And it's just the perfect culmination of all these new techniques they're able to establish for the movie. We're gonna
talk about the plot hole in the scene that people mentioned.
Oh, the fact that there's a big cliff that comes out of nowhere. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Yes.
No, here's the thing. I was watching that. I was literally watching that scene today.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's as much of a plot hole as people think it is.
I don't think it is either.
Because the T-Rex comes through the gate over here, and then it's like around the bend over here is where the gate is also broken off. And that's where they push the car off.
Yeah.
So it's like they pushed the car off in a different spot than where the T-Rex came out. Like if the T-Rex came out here and then they pushed the car through that same hole,
then it's yes, but
big
it's not
huge
the
plot
same
hole. But the
spot.
fact that it's in a different spot, to me, I don't know if it's actually a plot hole.
Mm-hmm.
That's something they're coming off of it's basically a giant cliff and there's trees down there and they're getting pushed off the edge.
It's definitely a bit strange, but I don't think it's implausible, to go with the whole, Mythbusters thing. I don't think it's implausible at all that there would be a giant cliff there in that paddock at all.
To me, it's it also kind of explains how Muldoon and Ellie later on get down to the car so fast.
Mm-hmm.
Because they go down to the car to check it out because it's fallen off the edge. They want to see if Ellen or the kids are there, and they're not. But then they come back, and Malcolm's like, "Hurry, hurry! It's coming back," because they can hear it. The T-Rex when they're chasing them away, and they got the little mirror with the objects in this mirror are larger than they appear.
Right. I love that shot. What a great shot.
I love that. So I don't think that plot hole, because the thing I noticed about this movie this time around was that it was so more well set up than I ever realized. Because like I said, I saw this movie when I was a 12-year-old, 11-year-old, somewhere in there, and I remember going back and watching it in years prior and still kind of just like watching it with those 12-year-old eyes and ears, like I'm not really paying attention to it because I've already seen it, but I'm enjoying it, whereas this time I was watching it as an adult and being like, oh wow, each scene really does build to the next. The guy gets eaten by the raptor, the lawyer shows up and he's investigating all parts of the park now, which is why he goes to the amber mine first, because that's where everything starts for building the park. And then he's talking about Alan Grant, and then it goes to the scene with Alan Grant, and it's like, okay, this really, I don't know, I was just impressed with how well the story was actually being told.
Yeah.
Than I think I was years ago. Yeah.
I think one thing of the scenes that has really bothered me, I know this is pointed out a lot, is when Lex gets the flashlight out for I don't know what she's trying to do with the flashlight. I think she's probably trying to signal Alan Grant that
she's probably trying to see
in general. Okay.
I mean, they're kids. They're not exactly seeing clearly.
Whenever people point this out, I'm always like, you have to realize they're kids. Kids don't always, they don't think like as well as adults sometimes because they're kids, and you have to. I think that's the reason why you kind of have to let this part slide. So a lot of people think this is a very stupid part of the movie that she gets out a flashlight, is shining all over the place for the T-Rex to see. But because they're kids, I'm willing to let it slide. I think it's something that, yeah, I think it's something that you can let slide. I think ultimately, either she was, like you said, she was trying to get, just trying to see, or she was trying to get Alan Grant's attention, because they use a lot of blue lighting because it's a night scene. But if you think about it realistically, this would be pretty much a completely dark scene. So it would make sense why she's trying to get out a flashlight to also see. So,
I never thought it was weird that she got out the flashlight there. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously, like the kid knows dinosaurs more than she does, the Tim. Yeah. So he's like, shut it off. Like, right. And of course, the whole time they're struggling to shut it off because the thing starts attacking their car, Mm-hmm. So,
yeah. Tim shuts the door. Tim also shuts the door, which wasn't a great idea, shutting the door. That also drew the T-Rex's attention.
Yeah, but again, it's also kind of like, if you want protection, you're going to want that door shut.
Yeah. Again, they're kids. I mean, that's a kind of a natural thing to do.
I think they're literally like 10 and 12, if I remember right. Yeah. Maybe she's 13 or something, but still, like,
not very old at all.
Young.
Yeah. So, do you have any more you want to say about that scene?
No, not about that.
Okay. I also wanted to discuss the Raptors in the kitchen scene, because this is kind of the second iconic scene, the most, second infamous or second famous scene really that's from the movie. Is just how suspenseful this scene is. We're kind of going back earlier, like you were talking about earlier, why it's so effective, and one of the reasons is because it puts kids in danger, and people don't want to see kids in danger. Anytime you put children in a precarious situation, a potentially dangerous situation, that automatically raises the stakes because no one wants to see a child get hurt. It's one thing to see an adult get hurt. You don't want to see an adult get hurt either, but especially for children, you don't want to see that. And so anytime you see kids in this kind of situation, you automatically your care for them automatically just naturally goes up.
Unless you're heartless.
Unless you're a heartless person, yeah. Pretty much any normal person should have, that awareness that this is, you care for these characters, and because they were introduced earlier in the movie, you know them pretty well by now, and So, like I said, this scene was accomplished through a combination of puppetry, raptor suits, and with some CGI as well. And Spielberg does use some music in this scene. Unlike the previous scene, he does use some music here, but it's also like pretty muted music. He doesn't overpower the scene with the music. He kind of keeps it in the background, and it's just a very, very painstakingly suspenseful scene. Having the raptors kind of inch their way in, and the kids crawling on the floor right across them, and Spielberg set this up very well by showing just what these raptors are capable of when the cow is dropped.
They can open doors.
Yeah, they can open doors when the cow is dropped into their paddock, and you don't see what they do, but you hear what they do.
And then you see the destroyed thing that comes out. Yeah.
To that poor cow being eaten alive, exactly what these raptors are capable of, and that immediately, this is a very serious situation here. And I also just love how Lex, particularly Lex, how she outwits the raptors in this scene. After that thing with the flashlight we were just talking about, how she's actually able to really outmaneuver two raptors who are spoken to be very, very intelligent. She's actually able to outmaneuver them. I will say, when she does end up knocking one out through the mirror, I don't think that was something she actually planned. It wasn't something she planned. It's kind of worked out that way. But the way she's actually just able to avoid them, I think it really just speaks to her intelligence. I think it's a great character moment also for her, just as an added bonus. And then later she uses her hacking powers to turn on the security for the park again. So her mentality, her hacking. She's a hacker.
Program.
Yeah. So it's
representation.
It's just it's just a really, really effective. Once again, a really effective scene. And then I kind of want to get into some of because this movie is as good as it is on a technological and visual standpoint. As it broke all these new bounds, it also has some philosophical and ethical dilemmas and ideas to it. With the whole themes of humanity's irresponsibility, how we like to, when we are able to do something, we just automatically do it without thinking about it. That happens time and time again. And we have an over dependence on technology. I think that's come into play many times in our history, where we have this technology in our hands, and whenever the minute it goes out, we're in crisis.
We had a blackout the other night here, the power went out because of wind and stuff, and knocked down some wires. And the second it went out, the whole house goes dark. It was late. The kids were already in bed, but we had play a CD for them, and we have a nightlight in there. The two boys were already asleep, but Anne was still awake. So when the music went out, she just burst into tears. So it was ooh. So so I ended up bringing her downstairs, and she and I sat on the couch. There was still a little bit of light outside, and she kind of fell asleep just sitting there. But we were so dependent on technology. I was wow, I can't cook anything. I can't I don't have the internet. I have my phone, which fortunately was mostly charged, so I could use the internet on that. But it's not I can't get on my computer. My wife's oh, get on the computer and check to see why there's an outage. And it's we can't. We need to use our phones.
Yeah.
So, we are definitely relying on technology a lot. And this movie, 28 years old, was talking about that then, and now
this is relevant as ever.
Things that, we forget these things at home, and we flip out and turn.
We're in panic
mode.
Get them. Yeah, we're in panic mode if we lose our phone. yeah, technology is such a centerpiece in the movie. You know, Hammond says time again, spared no expense. And, you know, from the automated tour to electric fences to everything being just, you know, top of the line in this park. The second everything goes out, it's like you're in the world of the dinosaurs now. You're in with nature now. You're high. You don't have a hierarchy anymore. You know, I think that's such a powerful idea. You know, is that whenever our technology goes out, we're out of our element, and now we're in their element, type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that they're hit with a hurricane,
the thing that we've always had, like machines of some form. Sorry, message popped up on my screen.
Oh,
yeah, it's always what we've had over the animals is the fact that we have machines. You know, we were able to make weapons that helped us hunt them down. We were able to build walls and buildings and use tools and stuff like that to protect ourselves. It's why we became the apex predator. But you strip all that away from us, and we can't defend ourselves against lions without technology, let alone dinosaurs.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I love, you know, Jeff Goldblum has a fantastic performance overall, but his character, Ian Malcolm, you know, he's a strong, proponent of chaos theory. And by the end of the movie, his theory is proven right in that, you know, nature can't be controlled by humans. You know, this park was hit by a hurricane. I mean, that's one of the things itself. It's like it was literally hit by a force of nature. And
I mean, let's also not forget the fact that you had a guy, a vindictive person,
also,
took down the security. You know what I mean?
Right.
Which is just another element that you can't control.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have a guy being paid for by another company who wants the same technology, and he's willing to take the money for it.
Yeah.
And gave us one of the best memes ever, you know? Dodson. See,
nobody cares. Nobody cares. Oh, I love that. Yeah, it's just a movie that has, you know, it provides that, like I've said before in our previous episodes, I think movies are at their best whenever they're able to not only entertain but also make you think. And this is just another one of those movies that, like, it's got it all. It's got the entertainment value. It's got, you know, these groundbreaking special effects and everything, but also has some very interesting ideas that you'll think about as you know, as the credits roll.
The line that really sticks out for me by Ian Malcolm is, your scientists were so busy seeing if they could that they never stopped to think they should.
Mm-hmm.
And that, to me, is that's a profound statement right there, that just because we can do something, just because you can overpower someone, just because you can do something, doesn't mean you should do it.
Yeah.
You know?
It's thinking before doing, before acting.
Yeah. And that applies to, like, almost every area of life, you know?
Right.
Just because I can beat my children in submission doesn't mean I should, you know? Mm-hmm. And then just so many things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all I had up until the trivia that I had, which I do have. There is some fascinating trivia I have here.
Trivia.
I do.
Okay, I'm going to share one piece of trivia that I have.
Okay.
Is that Jurassic Park, and I've said this on one of our podcasts years ago, Jurassic Park is directly responsible for the prequel trilogy of Star Wars.
Okay.
And the reason that is because Steven Spielberg, during post-production, needed to move on from this film, and he needed to go on to Schindler's List to start doing that movie. So he left this in the hands of George Lucas to oversee the post-production. So George Lucas, seeing these dinosaurs being edited on screen, was like, wow, the technology now exists. I can make Star Wars, the old Republic, the Republic stuff leading up to what we had in Star Wars. So he's like, I can do this now. So from that point on, in 1993, when he was handling post-production, he started planning for the 1999 release of Phantom Menace.
Mm-hmm.
So Jurassic Park caused Star Wars, the prequel trilogy,
There you go.
For better or worse.
Yeah.
I like the prequels.
Yeah, I know it's kind of a mix.
Time. I've always liked the first two. I've always felt the weakness was in the third one. That's always been my stance on the Star Wars prequels. But
gotcha.
Some people consider it differently.
Yeah, that's something also I always wanted to bring up is that Spielberg did two movies in 1993. He did this and Schindler's List, and Schindler's List went on to win Best Picture. So he did two movies, two acclaimed movies in the same year.
This movie didn't win Best Picture.
No,
but Steven Spielberg still won Best Picture that year.
He still won.
Yeah.
And they're two such very different movies, completely different genres, completely
the man is untouchable.
Everything.
He's untouchable. He's had a few.
He's had some
misses
flops.
Here. He's had some flops. Jurassic Park 2 was clearly a cash grab.
Yeah.
But if you think of the things he's made, how many movies in the past 50 years? Like if you made a list of the past since Jaws, let's say since the year Jaws came out, till now, if you made a list of the top 100 movies, he's easily got 20 on that list.
Yeah,
easily.
Movies that are not just great movies, but also such iconic movies. You think of Indiana Jones, you think of Jaws, you think of Jurassic Park, you think just so many, not just movies that were well received, but also such cultural timepieces, classics.
Like
E.T. Yeah, and did it again and again and again. This was really him at the top of his game. This was soon after, a couple years after E.T. I think E.T. was in the late 80s, mid 80s, 85. Okay,
85.
This was top. This was peak Spielberg. So some trivia here. As far as the sounds go for this movie, I just find this fascinating. The T-Rex sounds were obviously a combination of several animals, and some you can easily pick up in the movie, like the elephant. Mm-hmm. So there were some elephant sounds, but also there was some combination of dogs, penguins, tigers, and alligators.
Penguins,
even threw in some penguins there because
that's unexpected.
Just because,
I don't really know what penguins sound like, so happy feet.
And yeah. Totally, yes. The sound of the T-Rex footsteps were created by cut sequoias that crash into the grounds. I actually did not find that out till today, so that's pretty cool. The Dilophosaurus that takes down Dennis Nedry its sounds were a combination of a swan call mixed with a hawk. You had a rattlesnake, which I picked up on that one. That was pretty easy to pick out. The howler monk and the howler monkey. And then raptors were a mix of dolphins, which to get those high shrieks, which terrifying shrieks, but those were actually some dolphins. They mixed in a walrus and some geese as well. And basically those sounds were all put into a computer, then they were able to play them on a keyboard, basically, so they could create any kind of pattern that they wanted, which is pretty cool.
The other thing is, I feel like this movie made raptors popular.
Oh, it did. It definitely did.
Because I feel like, I was kind of into dinosaurs as a kid, and I don't feel like I ever heard of raptors until Jurassic Park came out. And then after Jurassic Park, every single book, single book that came out with dinosaurs after Jurassic Park had to have the raptor in it.
Well, and the interesting thing is the velociraptor that's featured in the movie, in real life, the velociraptors are only about 1.5 feet tall. But Spielberg obviously said we need something that's taller. And at the time, they had not uncovered a raptor that was as tall as the raptors that were featured in the movie. So they just basically increased the size of raptors in the movie because they wanted them to be more menacing and powerful and everything. But what was ironic was that during filming, they actually uncovered a fossil of a Utah raptor that was the size of the velociraptor they were portraying in the movie. So, these kind of raptors did actually exist. So the T-Rex, they had some problems with the animatronic 40-foot T-Rex. Not surprising because it's such a large animatronic.
It's also Steven Spielberg, so you remember
Spielberg's
Bruce with Jaws and
right. And because rain was involved, the T-Rex would get the shakes occasionally. So between each take, they had to dry him off between each take because he would just start shaking uncontrollably, and it would obviously not look very realistic.
Yeah.
But also, something that was kind of creepy was he would actually turn on himself sometimes. He would actually malfunction to the point where, like, when they would be on lunch break or whatever, he would start moving by himself. And apparently it actually genuinely creeped out some actors and crew.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Yeah. Producer Kathleen Kennedy, who was a producer for the film, she quoted, I know.
I expected to hear.
I know, right? Sorry. She is quoted as saying, "The T-Rex went into the heebie-jeebies sometimes, scared the crap out of us. We'd be like eating lunch, and all of a sudden the T-Rex would come alive. At first we didn't know what was happening, and then we realized it was the rain. You would hear people start screaming." So that had to be a sight. Let's see here. Yeah. Another thing, just to get the realism for the movie, they consulted Jack Horner, who was an actual paleontologist. He kind of subscribed to the theory that dinosaurs evolved from birds, not reptiles. So that's why in the movie you have their dinosaurs acting more bird-like than reptile-like, with like the head movements, the quick jerking head movements. That was all because trying to get them to be more bird-like.
And that's why they have Alan Grant kind of subscribing to that theory. And it's kind of funny because there's been a lot of things like they have discovered now that a lot of these dinosaurs may have actually had feathers. With I think it was within the past like 5 years that they discovered certain fossilizations with patterns where it shows that T-Rex and velociraptors and things like that may have actually been covered with feathers and not been reptilian skin, which I think they actually show something similar to that in, what was it? Wasn't it Jurassic Park 3? Where some of the raptors had like feathers on their heads.
Yes, they did.
Like that.
Yep. And also Spielberg just wanted the dinosaurs to be treated as animals, not monsters. That was kind of a big deal for him. In the documentary, he mentioned that several times. He wanted them to act like they were animals, not be regarded just straight up as monsters. T-Rex would do what he would instinctively want to do, and same thing with raptors. And this is also why he kind of started out with showcasing the awe and wonder of these animals. Not all they weren't all carnivores, and that's why he started out showing you the Brachiosaurus to kind of showcase the awe and wonder. And I also like that he did that with all these wide sweeping shots, and then when he wanted you to get scared and communicate the terror, he got you really, really close. He puts you in these claustrophobic situations with these, carnivorous dinosaurs whenever he wanted to. So I like that juxtaposition he uses from going to all these wide shots of these, showcasing the awe and wonder of these animals to the terror, and bringing the camera really close and the audience is really close. That was just another brilliant technique that he uses in the movie.
Yeah. We are at that 10 o'clock point. So
I see that. Now. Yep, I'm almost done with my trivia.
Okay, finish up the trivia.
Yeah. Harrison Ford turned down the role of Alan Grant. That's kind of something that a lot of people know. I think that was a good decision.
Probably good. I mean, he's been in so much stuff with Steven Spielberg.
And he says people would think he'd be like still Indiana Jones in a Jurassic Park movie, and he just didn't think that he was the right guy for the part. So. Yeah, I think Sam Neill does a good job anyway. Yeah.
He's a good actor.
Yeah. Fun fact, just from a cast perspective, when Ian Malcolm, when he flirts with Ellie Sattler in the movie, Jeff Goldblum actually dated Laura Dern. After this movie, they began a romantic relationship. They were engaged for actually 2 years before they broke up. Wow. So apparently Goldblum's actually famous for striking up relationships with some of his co-stars. So that's what he does, apparently. Jeff Goldblum. Okay. This last one was just fascinating to me. I had never caught this. When I read this, I went back to the movie just to prove it for myself, and sure enough, it's the case. When Dennis Nedry makes his first appearance, and you see his desk and everything, in the left-hand side, in a small window, he is watching Jaws. The movie Jaws is playing on the computer screen. it's kind of hard to see unless you look really closely at it, but it's there, and it's the part in Jaws whenever the shark actually first appears. Whenever it's whenever Brody is kind of tossing the bait into the water, and the shark comes out of the water. That's the part that the movie is at. I was like, I had never seen that part. I've seen this movie many times. I had never seen that ever before. But I thought
that's interesting because that would kind of hint that, hey, you're about to have your big reveal moment.
That too.
For this movie.
And of course, it's obviously Jaws. It's Spielberg, so it's Spielberg putting his own movie in his movie.
Hey, if I had a bunch of movies, I think I'd do that too.
Yeah, but yeah, that's what I had as far as trivia goes. Do you have any last thoughts on this movie? It's like I said, one of my favorites.
Yeah, I don't think Jurassic World holds up against it. I mean, they're fun for their own thing. I haven't actually seen Fallen Kingdom yet. There's apparently a third one coming out.
There is Jurassic World Dominion. I think is coming out next year.
Yeah, I literally thought Jurassic World Dominion was the second one. Completely forgot that Fallen Kingdom had come out.
Fallen Kingdom was so bad, in my personal opinion, just so bad. I didn't even love Jurassic World, the first one, but the Fallen Kingdom was infinitely worse than the first one. So I can't say I have high hopes for Dominion, but we'll see.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm tired of Hollywood just taking except for Marvel, although I've become more critical of Marvel lately.
Yeah.
After having seen what DC's done with comic book movies, which I know people don't like the DC stuff. But the one thing I love about DC is when you're watching their movies, these characters are actually larger than life, and they're striking poses from the comic books. It looks like it's coming straight out of another world, whereas Marvel has tried so hard to be part of our world, Mm-hmm. And the movie just looks very almost bland, They don't use the bright colors the way they do in the DC movies. But yeah, that's just my opinion. I've always been more of a DC fan anyways. Mm-hmm. Batman.
Bet you do love Batman.
I love Batman. But yeah, so I think that's actually it for tonight. I mean, thank you to all our viewers. We got up to 8 at one point. That was awesome. Thank you for sticking with us for this whole time, whoever you two people are who've been here the whole time. Thanks for being on. And
we'll be next week. We'll be Mad Max Fury Road. So
that's not live. That's just
not live, but it'll be our first. It'll be on Spotify and iTunes. So if you're interested in that, definitely check it out. And thanks so much for tuning in to us. This was our first, obviously, it was our very first live episode. So I think it went pretty well. I
think so too. My dad's still on.
Nice. So
yeah, thank you for being with us and stay cool.
Yeah, stay cool. We'll see you.